Hello and welcome to The Goggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm joined by DeBar. He's a radio talk show host and an anti-war activist. And we have George Szamuely, an author and a founding member of this YouTube channel, The Goggle. All right, gents, let's talk about how you feel, because that's what the DNC convention is all about. How you feel, how you look, okay? I mean, okay, let's be fair. It's a virtual convention. We're in the middle of a pandemic. I get it. I can't think of anything more cringeworthy to watch that has ever been made for television than this convention here.
Let me tell you something.
Jump in.
Just on this point, I've done a lot of television production over the years as a producer, as a technician, director, all of that stuff. And for public access, not big money CNN, community television, people's television, cheap, low budget television to be more accurate. And I'm cringing over the production. You have, instead of having to produce a show for 15,000 bodies, feed them, take care of their going to the bathroom and they're parking their cars and security and all this other stuff. All you got to do is put on a TV show, and they have a 2-hour TV show instead of 6 or 7 or 8 hours worth of meetings and all the stuff that you do at a convention. And for that, the first night, half of it was music videos, what they call B-roll, just like, here's some footage of Biden saying something to somebody. We don't know who it is. We don't know exactly what the hell he just said, but he's up 19 minutes, and so there we go. Next. And then otherwise a couple of recycled politicians that nobody wants to elect. They're on TV because they're not in office.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what the Never Trumpers were doing there. I mean, it's quite extraordinary. Joe is not a radical. Joe is a moderate, because I know by the measure of his character. Well, then why was Donald Trump elected in 2016?
Yes.
Hello?
Yeah.
George, obviously their primary mission is the manufacturing of this diversity mantra. Okay, that's obvious there. That was the entire stage show. And why? Because they did everything in their power, with the exception of a few minutes by Bernie Sanders, to avoid policy. They did not talk about policy.
Right.
Yes. Right. The highlight of that was, of course, the opening night performance by Michelle Obama, which was all about feeling good and again diversity, and in which she presented herself as a victim. I mean, here is a woman who has enjoyed every privilege in life.
Did she do this from Martha's Vineyard? I might be wrong.
Well, she ordered it from Martha's Vineyard. The house is what, I don't know, $11 million worth.
From the summer estate, the summer waterfront estate.
To, the Ivy League schools. She's worked at the top law firms. Her husband was as a state senator, swept through to the Senate, then to the presidency. She has had every privilege thrown up her. She's made tons of money. She's a celebrity. And yet she wants us to believe that because she's a black woman, she's a victim. And that the rest of us who are not, the white America are her oppressors. It was absolutely a phony baloney performance. And it was made all the worse by the insufferable gushing that greeted this. I mean, it was insincere, a terrible delivery, because she was always as if she was choking back tears. It was phony, and the commentary was utterly vapid.
Yeah, I mean, the swooning. I mean, one of the greatest political speeches ever made. Comparing her, I think someone compared her to the best of Reagan and all of this. I mean, and I have to say, if you fact check it, and no one will, but there's a lot of mistakes, factual errors in it, and specifically in reference to Black Lives Matter. But that's what they want, George. That's what they want, Don. They want to have a virtue signaling convention, and there's a good reason for that. And I'm going to go back to Don here. What about the progressives? What about the progressive part of the wing of the party? And it seems to me that they're tripping over themselves to show some kind of congeniality, to be cordial, and again, not talk about policy, because if you talk about policy, you will show the fissures inside that party, and there are a lot of them. Go ahead, Don.
You mentioned before, and as you were sort of shaping this part of it, about Bernie, except for Bernie Sanders discussing policy a little. When you think about that, the only ones that discussed policy last time at all, and I'm speaking in raw terms and actual policy, maybe not pretty like policy you would discuss in Harvard or whatever, but actual policy, were the two insurgent campaigns, Trump and Sanders last time. They were saying, in essence, this stuff doesn't work for us, and here's why. This is something that can be done that would make a material improvement of one way or another in people's lives, bring back jobs, manufacturing, whatever the things were. These were actual discussions of, I will do this, so this happens, that's good for you. To me, that's a discussion of policy, particularly compared to what we have instead. And so when Trump is just now he's out doing his thing, and this is what we did, this is what we're going to do next, et cetera. Sanders is the only one in the Democratic Party discussing policy, and it's only watered down, really. Policy to the health care, in essence, is the only material.
I didn't watch it all, obviously. Those are hours I would never get back in my life, okay? but I mean, from what I did see, and I want you to answer first, George, but I didn't see any specific policy directed toward and to aid working people and working families. Maybe I missed something, but I didn't see that there. And that's the most pressing issue in the country today, going through a pandemic and this economic catastrophe that is affecting tens of millions of people, if not 1/3 of the entire country. So, Don, I mean, the working class, they just don't care about working people. No.
Well, more importantly, I mean, that's a given, okay? And I guess this is evidence of it. But really, what we're seeing is that there's like a whole virtual universe where the political participation of the people of this country takes place in this one universe of politics, okay? And that one is virtual, because in fact, nothing decided in there. There's no one with a lever of actually implementing some policy somewhere, looking at that contraption for instructions on what policies to implement or not. That is for the rubes. That's the thing. We're mud wrestling and drinking beer, pouring it on each other, and the people mud wrestling. And there's some people across the street at this hotel that are buying and selling property up on the 13th floor. Okay, they're doing what they're doing. We're getting drunk and mud wrestling. And it feels like politics, but now they used to do that at least with 15,000 people in a room. And so you would have still some sort of real life contact with people, where if there's 10 of us all meeting on Joe Biden and healthcare, somebody actually says, by the way, healthcare inside a meeting. Now it's all going to be beamed into our individual screens, whatever we're looking at. And that's our participation. Yeah, it's completely and totally virtual.
The only participation is to want everyone to feel as good as you feel. George, again, and everyone knows me on Crosstalk and here, is that my mantra is working people and working families here. And this is a constituency that has been completely written off. Single payer healthcare is definitively, it's been researched over and over again, the polls say it, a majoritarian issue. Even Republicans, okay?
Right.
But you wouldn't know that watching the Democratic Convention that is supposed to be traditionally the friend of the working class and working families. You didn't see it. Go ahead, George.
Oh, that's exactly right. And that is what Democratic Party politics is today. It is all about symbolism. So they keep repeating Black Lives Matter. So then they paint a giant mural, Black Lives Matter. How does anyone's life improve as a result? You know, you put it big letters in the middle of the street, Black Lives Matter. Whose life is improved by that? You take down the statue of Robert E. Lee. Whose life is improved by that? And therefore, they don't talk about policy or any of the things that would actually make a difference to people's lives. So that's why all these giant corporations can be quite happily endorse Black Lives Matter, because it doesn't affect their bottom line. You know, they write a check for $50 million to Black Lives Matter instead of raising the pay of their workers. That would affect their bottom line.
Allowing unions, Jeff Bezos, okay?
Exactly. That would affect their bottom line. Giving everybody regular hours so that they're permanently employed and therefore entitled to healthcare benefit. That would affect their bottom line. But saying, hey, Black Lives Matter, yeah, I'm with you, that doesn't affect their bottom line.
That's right.
All right, I want to
so
ask,
therefore, if the corporations are on the side, that means they're not doing anything.
Before we go here, a very important thing, and I think historically it is proven, is that to have to be a winner, you have to have a winning message, and that message has to be a positive. There is no positive being posited during this convention. Trump is bad. That is not a positive. It may be true, but it's not a positive to run on here. And what I found really remarkable is that there is so little to talk about really about Joe, except for he is an old neoliberal apparatchik of the Democratic Party and of the state apparatchik. And all they can do is talk about hating Trump. Well, all the people that hate Trump are already convinced. You're not convincing anybody new, okay? That's why I think this is an exercise in futility, because nothing is accomplished. Everyone says they don't like Trump, but they won't talk about health care. They won't talk about mass incarceration. They won't talk about the opioid epidemic. They won't talk about things that affect average people. Go ahead, Don, and George will finish it off.
And you don't talk about anything material. The decisions about the things material are made, by them in their back room for their benefit. Has nothing to do with us or any political process that we have a stake in or even have heard of most of the time. There's a point when propaganda, all kinds of compromises in a society that sort of ease the pain for one type of oppression or another to allow it to continue, when that stuff wears thin. And in the language of political economy, the rulers find it impossible to rule in the old ways, and the people won't accept it either. And we're kind of reaching one of those points where no matter how good a line of crap comes out of their mouths, the position that people face on a daily basis in their real lives is so precarious that they can't actually see it. And it reaches a point shortly after that happens where it actually motivates their behavior.
Yeah. So, it's very interesting. I was just thinking, what did the viewer think about what they saw during these last two nights? Well, they probably didn't see much because they're working if they have a job. They're working two jobs if they have two jobs. They're worried about their kids going to school. They're worried about the future of the country. And then you have CNN, swooning over these vacuous speeches that mean nothing to anyone except for a mutual admiration society that's all there virtually. George, I want you to reflect upon this lack of positivity in this campaign. We'll wrap it up. Go ahead.
That's a very good point. It was a very dismal performance because when they're not condemning racism, sexism, homophobia, Islamophobia, and the narrow-mindedness and general awfulness of the American public, They're moaning about the pandemic and how everything must be locked down, and the disease is so horrific that we're going to be locked down forever and ever. And there isn't a kind of the positive message that you would expect. Where's your jobs program? Where's your healthcare program? What are you going to do in order to help unions? What are you going to do about infrastructure? All of the various things to say, yeah, this is going to improve our lives. Instead, what are we looking for? We're going to be locked down forever and wearing masks when we're allowed out of our houses.
The pandemic will end when the election's over, but that's a topic for another video here. I want to thank Don and George here, and I always remember everyone, like, share, subscribe, watch the Gaggle.